I just feel such gratitude for Brian, for you, and for Chris, and for Roland, too, this morning. Just really willing to honor kind of the theme of the service today, and all the ways you magically do that every time you're here, every week. The title of the talk today is Gratitude, God at the Garage Sale. Yeah. Have any of you ever been at a garage sale, held a garage sale, bought something at a garage sale? Is there anyone here who has not ever known anybody who had a garage sale? So you have some reference with garage sale, right? So today the talk is Gratitude, God at the Garage Sale. And it's a story that I wrote last year after we had a moving and garage sale. I hope these themes you'll be able to hear in this talk. The theme that God is everywhere present, although sometimes I forget. Does that ever happen to you, that you forget that? I know I do. And if you don't ever forget that, I want you to talk to me after the service, because I want you to tell me how you're doing that. And I hope you'll hear the theme of, that's really our unity affirmation, that there is only one presence and one power. That's a spiritual truth for me. And sometimes I forget. And I hope you'll hear the theme from the scripture from Jeremiah 29:13. When you search for me, you will find me if you seek me with all your heart. It's beautiful, isn't it? So, what I wonder is, what in the heck is it about a garage sale that evokes so many things in us? It can evoke excitement, like support for releasing what doesn't serve us, getting rid of our clutter. It might stir excitement because maybe we're going to go out and shop at one, and maybe we're going to find a bargain in something we've been looking for, or something we can use creatively in our life. And it also evokes in us, or at least it did in me, fatigue, exhaustion, and just the energy to show up that day and be present, which was no small feat. So our garage sale, moving sale a year ago, it was the same. It evoked all of those things. And the day of the sale, arrived after all that work and all that effort, and I was tired. And I don't mind saying that I was kind of whiny. And, I got up that morning and my eyes just did not want to open. They were kind of bleary and kind of tired, and I was, just not in a good place about it. And it was before light even, and you're out there, putting up signs, and people are coming early. And some people came really early, like 3 days early. This, like this one woman who came to get the coveted Barbie and Ken doll that I was selling for her vast collection, and that's a whole nother story for another day. But, and some people came days early for antique farm tools that we had, and so there was just a lot going on leading up to this. And I was in that space where I was kind of forgetting those larger spiritual truths that I hold, that God is everywhere present, even in this tired moment, that God is everywhere present, even, the woman coming 3 days early, and all of this stuff. And so I was needing some reminders. And as the day unfolded, I certainly got some of those. That morning I looked up and I saw, also I was just kind of amazed. I looked outside our garage. It was a 2-car detached garage at the bottom of like this mountain of a steep driveway from the street. And at the base of it, there was this huge concrete platform. Think basketball court. I think that's what the family of 12 that lived there before us used it for. And but spilling out of the garage were all these tables that held, what you find at a garage sale. Small appliances, dishes, books, tools, gardening stuff, music, CDs, just everything, clothing. And, that category that cannot be contained, miscellaneous. Some of you can relate to that. So, and so, and as the day began, there were, middle-aged folks that came, and elders that came, and kids that came, and, families from every rich, diverse place on the continuum of our humanity. They came to purchase, to explore, and to barter. a couple of hours in, when there really wasn't anybody else around for just a moment in time, there were these two really muscular guys that came down the driveway. And they had baseball caps kind of down over their face, so you couldn't really see their face. But what I did notice was that they had all these really brightly colored tattoos everywhere I could see skin, and a lot of metal, like enough to set off a metal detector at an airport. And they just kind of, the way they came down the driveway, it stirred me a little bit, and I found myself thinking, I wonder how this is going to unfold. And there wasn't, really too many other people around. I was just a little bit afraid. So what I did was I just watched them, and they kind of sauntered around, and they averted our gaze. Like we made efforts to greet them, and they just weren't having it. They weren't meeting us there, and so I was just kind of holding my breath a little bit. But what I noticed was one of the guys knelt down in the concrete driveway in front of this very delicate, small wooden music box table that had this beautiful inlaid wood and I think maybe some abalone shell in it. And he knelt down and he lifted the lid. And then we all heard Brahms' lullaby playing. And I couldn't see his face, but I could feel the energy change. And I was pretty amazed by that. And I thought that, that they were interested in that table, and I wanted to talk with them about that to see if they wanted to bargain with it or, what their interest was. But just any attempts at connecting wasn't happening. I don't know if there was a language barrier. I don't know if they didn't have any money. There were many things I didn't know. But what I did know was that my original assumptions just melted away, and my heart opened. And they looked around at some other stuff, and this guy went back again for a second time and listened to Brahms' lullaby. He'd open the lid with his humongous hands. This tiny little delicate table. And there was something just so stirring in that for me. And they ended up, leaving. They were walking back up the driveway. But that same guy turned around and came back down the driveway one final time to listen to Brahms' lullaby. Still chokes me up. And he, this time he had his cap pushed back from his face. And I could see this soft, dreamy face, just enraptured. And I remembered that God is everywhere present. And that I want to remember that even before I can see the face, even before I can feel the energy change. I want to remember that everyone is the face of God. A while later at the garage sale, a young mother rolled her stroller down this very steep driveway, and with her came her probably 4 or 5-year-old son. He went running down. The kids loved that driveway, and it was fun to see them all running down that day. So they came down, and we didn't have many toys at our sale, but this boy, Mom handed this young man, 4 or 5, a dollar and said, if you want to buy something here, you can. And he headed straight for this huge box of the CDs, the music CDs. There were probably 100 of them there. And while Mom was shopping around at the other stuff, he was very patiently just sorting through. And he came up to the table where I was sitting with the cash box, and he handed me a CD that he wanted to buy and a dollar. And I gave him back the change. And in that exchange, I noticed 2 things. One, I noticed that he had a very large hearing aid behind his ear. And the second thing that struck me was that the CD he had selected was about drumming and rhythm. And so they went, Mom, he paid for a CD, and they went around and did some other things. And, as they were stopping to leave, beginning to leave to go back up the driveway, this little boy went over to that same music box table, and he lifted the lid, and he put his whole head in there. to listen. And his face was like magic. And Morgan and I both made eye contact, and we're like, this kid has to have this table. So we gave them the table. Excuse me, and they went up the driveway. Mom and the baby in the carriage, and the little boy, and Morgan helping them carry up the music box table. God is everywhere present. Everyone is the face of God. And then there was Sam and Grandma. Sam was her 5 or 6-year-old grandson, and they came down the driveway, and Grandma was kind of hobbling. It looked like maybe she had some health issues, and Sam, again, was one of those kids that just ran down the driveway. He was such an exuberant kid, and they met at the bottom. And if appearances were accurate, which you never know if they are, but if appearances were accurate, it seemed like maybe they didn't have very much. And Grandma moved from table to table, carefully lifting and examining everything with caution. And Sam was immediately drawn to this very large, bright orange exercise ball. Have you ever seen those? Yeah. I think Morgan still uses one for a chair, and sometimes, and we had an extra one. And for me, they were dangerous. So we were releasing one of those. Anyway, Sam was so drawn to that. He rolled it, excuse me, he bounced it, he chased after it once when the wind blew it across the driveway into the grass, and Grandma kept giving him stern looks. And an occasional, Sam, put that back. But Sam, he couldn't seem to separate himself from that ball. Grandma, I want to buy this ball. Silence. Grandma, can I have this ball? Silent. Stern gaze. Later still. Grandma, I need this ball. No response. Grandma continued browsing in her own wonderful, thoughtful way. And Sam approached me and said, how much does this ball cost? And I said, go ask that lady in the cap, Morgan, what her bottom dollar is for that ball. Morgan was really busy. People were asking about all these garden tools we had, and so she hadn't heard all the various conversations that had gone on, the Grandma Sam exchanges. What's your dollar for that ball, he asked her. And she said, I think it says $3. Grandma, it's only $3. Silence and a frown. Sam, come here, I said. I think you can get that ball for less money. Go ask that lady her best price for that ball. So he walked over to her, and Morgan, still busy with other folks, said, how about $1? And Grandma, this ball is only $1. I need that ball. Nothing. No arguing, no tantrums. Sam just continued to roll and play with that large ball. He wrapped his arms around it as best he could. He lifted it, and he actually cradled it. And then he said sweetly to nobody in particular, I could barely hear him, but he said, as he held it with his eyes closed, he said, this is like the world. Well, I was toast. Something about that just made me think this kid really is a holder of the world in some way, in some big way. And we need to support that, and that kid really does need that ball. He's right. So when Grandma came to the table to pay for a couple of small items, Sam was out of hearing range, and I said to Grandma, I think I can arrange for him to have that ball, but I don't want to do that unless it's okay with you. Of course, I didn't want to usurp her authority with him. And so would it be okay for us to give him that ball? And shyly she said, it's okay with me, if it's okay with you. And I said, yeah, it's okay with both of us. And I said, do you want to tell him? And she said, no, I want you to tell him. So I picked up the ball and I moved towards Sam, who was waiting patiently, just like he'd been asked to by the driveway exit. And I brought it over to him and I said, Sam, do you know whose ball this is? And he was trying so hard not to frown. But he said, no. Whose is it? And I handed it to him and I said, Sam, it's yours. And his face just lit up. And my heart lit up. And I'm pretty sure the whole world lit up too. I ended up feeling like, I should be paying them for being there. Have you had circumstances like that? It was worth $1 million to me. So beyond the exhausting preparation, the early rising and the stress of moving and getting ready for that sale, God was right there. In some ways, too bright for me to ignore, even in my whiny, crabby state. It gave me an attitude shift. I felt such gratitude for that muscly guy with his humongous hands lifting the lid of that table and hearing Brahms' lullaby and letting himself be transformed by it. And I felt so grateful for that boy lover of music with a hearing issue, picking out a CD about drumming and rhythm and putting his head in that table. And such gratitude for Grandma and for Sam. That day, the divine really shone so brightly that there was no way I could ignore that. It almost makes me want to have another sale. Almost. Almost. Yeah, not quite. So, I need reminders because I forget. That God is everywhere present. That's a unity principle. I think it's maybe the first principle. God is everywhere present. Some of you might remember the old television show, Joan of Arcadia. Does anybody remember that? Where the theme song, the lyrics were, what if God were one of us? Just a slob like one of us. Like a stranger on a bus trying to find their way home. And then in that show, God would show up in all these different ways as the janitor, as the little girl on the playground, and I just loved that show. For me, that bears remembering. And I do forget, and so I need ways to remember. And teaching stories like that help me remember. And big lit up spider webs in the morning help me remember. And I think to remember, I have to have people, places, and things. This community, when I come here, helps me remember. Thank you for that. There's another little video and song I want to share with you this morning that when I watch it, it helps me remember, and maybe some of you have run into it. It's a collaboration between two very diverse musicians, Nemo Patel and Daniel Nahmod, who we have done much of Daniel Nahmod's music here. When we sing that song, God, You Are Every Mountain, God, You Are Every, that's a Daniel Nahmod song. So these two very diverse musicians came together with two very different styles of music to offer us this song. And the song is called Grateful, a love song to the world. I hope you enjoy it.